Where?
Gravel.
Yes,
That's
yes,
a
yeah. Unfortunately, I have a really good place.
Did you hear us on the
Yeah.
She's the best food down. That's crazy.
I ate down there last week.
6 o'clock, call in November 25th. Meeting to order. Ask clerk to take roll.
Dvorak.
Here.
Vogel. Here. Walters.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Sarchet.
Here. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I have no additions or corrections. I take a motion, please.
Motion approved as presented.
Second. Roll call.
Dvorak.
Yes.
Vogel. Yes. Walters.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Sarchet.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item is public comments. It's time and place for comments for any item other than those that are in a public hearing. If you wish to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Anyone in the audience wish to be heard at this time? Hearing none or seeing none, moving on to item 5, consent agenda. Take a motion, please.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Vogel. Yes. Walters.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Sarchet.
Yes.
Dvorak.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item is business items. Item A, Resolution 2019-107, approving preliminary plat for Creekview Estates. Who's here to speak tonight?
Josh Trickstead, Soul Design Vantage, 3405 Southeast Crossroads Drive, Grimes, Iowa. Ooh. I'll shoot about that. On behalf of North Polk Development, we're requesting approval of the Creekview Estates preliminary plat. The project is located at the southwest corner of Hug Drive and 3rd Street. Consists of approximately 32 acres. It's undeveloped. There's a couple farmsteads that are out there that would be demolished. The proposed development includes 86 single-family lots. Basically, the concept matches up to what we presented pretty close at rezoning, minus a couple of outlots and lot lines changing a little bit, but same number of lots, same connection points. We did add a phase line. The first phase would include, I believe it's 48 lots. Other than that, I believe we addressed all of Snyder's comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Comments, questions, concerns?
So, I don't know which category this is, but with your P&Z, it wasn't unanimous. It was 5-2, and there was some good discussion, principally around what's results here in West Trace Place and West Trace Drive not going through. I think both votes were both negative votes were because it didn't go through, and that just stemmed from our original plans for that road going through. And so how West Trace ends doesn't have a bulb. It seems like Mike, Jim, Trace were okay with that. I don't want to speak for you guys. It's pretty 150 feet or something like that. But I do appreciate, and especially after some discussions this week, the perspective of those P&Z folks. We have a plan. If we're not going to stick to it, we need to have a good reason. And I think, I don't know if the petition that they signed that they brought to P&Z got the council, but it was like 80-some residents in Wolf Creek, which is pretty shocking. Agree on anything in that neighborhood, but to not go with the road going through, which you guys jumped on, I appreciate. I mean, it makes sense. Less infrastructure costs for you guys, more lots, higher priced lots. Seems to be win both for at least from the folks that came in that area. And these guys, in a vacuum, you'd like to see the roads end as they should, but if it doesn't present any emergency vehicle problems, maintenance problems, the neighborhoods are good. That seems like an okay exception. Just perspective.
essentially doing what the majority of the residents would prefer happen.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, that's.
I mean, that there was, again, I think 80 some signatures. I don't know just
Okay.
exactly. And the ones that were there kind of voiced that same sentiment too.
So the exception here is that listening, I mean, sure it didn't say that before, but now we're listening to what the residents want, which is fair, right? I mean, that's really what we want to do. We don't want to just, so that's, appreciate that. Thanks.
Also,
Go ahead. Go ahead, you're on.
so I just, the extra trail connector piece along, Hillside and Third, I think is a good step.
If memory serves me from the original presentation of this ground, that's about the only deviation there is from what was originally proposed. Is that correct? Because we all know my memory's not what it should be.
Actually, we've always proposed, I think we showed city staff at one time, like through street, but we've always proposed actually this cul-de-sac at the end of here. And it was mainly due to looking at the infrastructure and how many trees have to be removed just to do that connection.
If you're saving trees, that'll make everybody happy.
In the street, honestly, was skewed slightly where it left this lot that was front a little abnormal, where it probably only worked for townhomes, not single family, and that's not appropriate.
Well, relatively speaking, with other developments and everything, that deviation is not as serious as it could have, I guess is the point I'm trying.
Could you show me along the map? I'm just trying to find it on here, the trail connection that you have.
It's the trail, so the trail what's being proposed
Oh,
is
the dark, I got it.
you have this dark line on Third. And ultimately, we have no issues, or the developer or applicant has no issues with putting it in. They just want to know that there's really a master plan for bringing Third Street all the way down to the city, which I don't know if Wolf Creek, I think at rezoning they brought that up too, if I recall, the Wolf Creek homeowners. But, or maybe that was at P&Z, I can't recall for sure. But yeah, I mean.
So what do you mean by that? If we don't present a good enough
No, it's
proposal
not.
to your standard, you're not gonna
No, not that. They just want to know that there's a plan in place that the city's hopefully,
Well,
a trail connection.
and we
know plans are multi-year plans.
And we know that we've had a concern from those residents out there since it opened up. They'd like a way to walk to town, uptown, downtown, whatever we want to call it. Be uptown to them, downtown to me.
And it'll be amenity, honestly. It would help sell
Sure.
lots. So I guess that's where the hope is coming.
And it does fit into our whole trail plan where we hope to go, I think.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Not, I take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Sarchet?
Yes.
DeVore? Vogel? Yes. Walters?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Item B, Resolution 2019-108, adopting PA-27 Economic Development Policy. You want this one?
Yes.
Perfect.
In front of you for consideration tonight is an economic development policy which outlines criteria in which the city will use TIP, which is known as tax financing. So just a quick explanation on what TIP is. As property owners, we all pay our property taxes. It goes to the county auditor. They then disperse amongst the various taxing entities, correct? So I think we're all pretty familiar with that process. So taxing entities include city, school district, county, state of Iowa, community college. So that is where your property taxes go. So TIF is just a tool for local governments to use that allows a redistribution of where that breakdown goes. So as a property owner, property taxpayer, you pay your taxes the same. However, we send a little notice to the auditor that says, instead of dispersing these amongst all the taxing entities, the local government can collect a bigger bulk of the tax rate. So just in a quick 5-minute discussion of what TIF is, there's obviously some more complications to that with the topic, but that is essentially what TIF is. It's a tool for local governments to use to collect additional tax dollars. So what do local governments do with those tax dollars if they decide that they want to collect a bigger piece of the pie? One, we could give that kickback to a developer. Thank you for developing in our community. Here's a little bit of a kickback or an incentive to get people to develop in a local community. Or two, my favorite way of using tax increment financing is to use that additional money to pay for city-led projects. So infrastructure needs, streets, water main extensions, sewer extensions, etc. We could be using tax increment financing for city-led projects. So at the goal setting session, I think it was fairly straightforward. You guys wanted to see a policy that outlines what we use TIF for. In the policy, I have outlined that a few new things that we try to focus on, but mainly one, we need an application process. So if developers are interested in applying for TIF money, they would apply via an application. The application would be reviewed by a committee, and I have selected the finance committee to be that committee. So 2 council members, the mayor, city manager, and finance director sit on that committee. I did give Al Lorenzen a copy of the memo, and I would be okay with including him. If you guys would like to include him on those committee meetings for TIF applications, I think that's a great idea to get some insight from him and or Bridget. Okay.
Wow, that was quick.
You want to give it some thought?
Second, I did put in the policy that TIF funds may be used for improving city infrastructure when the project is city-led infrastructure project. Another point, the city will not provide TIF funds for residential developments, residential structures, multi-residential developments, or multi-residential structures. So I do have a little snippet in here that says the city may issue TIF funds for residential developers when the city is requesting infrastructure requirements above and beyond, which I put a spreadsheet attached to the policy that you all had hopefully a chance to take a look at, that I asked Kathleen to assist me with putting that together. So the city may provide TIF funds for specialized retail development for establishments with minimum anticipated value of at least $500,000. I had this set a little bit higher, but after talking to Al, we just thought it would be good if we did put ourselves in a corner, and that allowed us a little bit of wiggle room. I think it's pretty difficult for anybody to put up a commercial building for less than that dollar amount anyway, so set it at something. I had $750 to start with, and I lowered it to $500. Another point, we would give TIF money on a rebate basis. I like the rebate basis. It holds the developer responsible for doing their part of the project, and then the city kicking in their dollars after the project's done, after the taxes have been paid, and we rebate it back to the developer. That's a standard development agreement anyway nowadays. So I have put in here that the committee may recommend any TIF incentive allowable under this policy. Rebates normally range from 1 to 5 years, and then at the council or the committee's discretion, we could go higher than that depending on some criteria that developers would need to meet. Job creation is important, and then also if they far exceed the minimum anticipated value. So if we have some developer that comes in and is recommending $20 million project, and if we want to rebate them back beyond the 5 years, we have that capability to do so. So the TIF policy is very much targeted towards enhancing industrial, commercial development, and then retail development also, but also does prohibit the residential developers from receiving TIF money unless it's at the request of the city. So that is the basis of the policy. Open to feedback from the council. And please provide me your thoughts on what you think at my first go at it.
Comments, questions, anything?
I think it's great. I think it's something we've needed. I think it leaves us more wiggle room than what we had in the past, where we just plain had a moratorium on residential TIF for, I think, 10 years. And now, if it is something that we feel a need to, there are exceptions can be made, but there's groundwork here that we get some benefit from this, because you're already behind in collecting taxes, right? When a new residential, but you got to start providing services immediately. And now with TIF agreement, we're even further behind. And so basically the rest of the town is going to pay for services for these developments until the TIF is done. Is that correct? Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, if for some reason we were to issue a TIF agreement or a development agreement for 100%, we would not see any new valuations to operate. Now, if we do like 75% or 70%, I think you can make the argument that the other 25% goes to the taxing entities, which does include the city. So I do like doing non 100% rebates for that agreement, that you are collecting something.
Well, I for one commend you. I think it's a good policy you put together, and great.
I totally agree as well. I appreciate the approach. I appreciate the explanation. I think going through this like this in a stated, transparent way, I appreciate, much more collaborative than happened in the past. I think that's what we should be about. So this is a great step.
And there are still a lot of people out there that see TIF as tax abatement. Although it's not, there are still people that see it.
Tax abatement is a different subject for a different day.
Yeah, I know, but
Not to be discussed. It's pretty simple. Any other questions, comments, concerns, or a motion?
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Dvorak?
Yes.
Vogel? Yes. Walters?
Yes.
Anderson?
yes,
Sarchet?
Yes.
Great job, Jenny. Just so it's noted, I'm going to have you redo that. Your resolution has a P in front of the economic development policy on it.
Oh,
So just
I'll fix that.
so that it's here and everybody, in case anybody was to see it, just have you redo that. I was waiting to get through it before I called your attention to it.
No problem.
All right. Item C, adopt changes to the Polk City Employee Handbook. You again?
Yes.
Yes.
So the employee handbook has gotten a makeover, or proposed in front of makeover. So I involved the personnel committee in making some changes to the handbook in October. We met twice. We met October 24th, and then we met again on November 11th to discuss changes to the employee handbook. But I'm just going to briefly go over all of the changes that are proposed in front of you for tonight, and if you have questions, please ask. So we involved Matt Brick several months ago, prior to my time with the city, to kind of just go through the handbook, find home, get rid of some things that didn't need to be in the employee handbook that were really not employee related matters. So he did that. He also changed city administrator to city manager throughout the handbook for us. We merged several policies that we had related to employees into the handbook, and those 7 are listed in my document to the council. Resident relations policy, outside employment, confidential information, workplace violence and weapons policy, safety and health policy, drug-free workplace policy, and seatbelt policy. We also made some legal changes at the request of Matt Brick, and those changes, ethical behavior, nepotism, social media, social networking, and contact with the media. Those seem to all be hot topics in local government, so we just we did a little bit of adding to those sections. An acknowledgement page. As a new employee with the city, you should always be handed a copy of the employee handbook and sign something that you did receive it. And anytime the city makes changes to that handbook, you should acknowledge it as a city employee. So the handbook now has an acknowledgement page, and everybody employed with the city will get that page anytime changes are made. And or a new employee, that acknowledgement page would then go in their personnel file. Probationary introductory period. I have a strong belief that it is important to develop employees in their first year of employment of the city. I think you should be given 2 performance evaluations within that first year. One at 6 months, one at a year, and then employees would possibly be eligible for pay increases twice within that first year and then every year thereafter. Inclement weather. I feel like this was probably something we didn't talk about until maybe last year, but I added a section in the handbook regarding inclement weather and how we're going to continue to operate or close City Hall in extreme circumstances. Per diem traveling policy. We had no policy prior to the overhaul of the handbook. So essentially what we have done is we have referenced the General Services Administration. They set a per diem by city throughout the U.S. of where you're traveling to based off of cost of living. So depending on where you're traveling to, that would be your per diem policy to eat off of on a daily basis. Receipts would still have to be submitted. On-call pay. So we were doing this for the fire department. However, we have several hourly employees, specifically in public works, that are expected to be on call. So we are establishing $1 per hour pay to be on call. Leave of absence without pay. The handbook used to state that a leave of absence without pay had to be approved by the council. We just changed that to be approved by the city manager. Maternity paternity leave. We added a benefit for maternity paternity leave. Eligibility requirements are you have to be employed with the city for at least 1 year, and maternity leave would be up to 6 weeks full pay. You could take an additional 2 weeks at 70% after your 6 weeks. Paternity pay is 2 weeks full pay with the additional 2 weeks at 70% after those 2 weeks. And then we also put an adoption policy in the handbook that would allow parents going through the adoption process 4 weeks paid at 100% and then 70% for the preceding 2 weeks after that 4 weeks is up. Holidays. We did a pretty good comparison across the metro where we were at with some of the employee benefits, and holidays was one of those topics we discussed. We currently offer 7.5 holidays a year, and I would say the average was 9, 10. So we decided we were going to bump that up to 9 holidays a year. So Christmas Eve would be a full holiday, and then we actually let the employees vote on what the 9th holiday was, and Good Friday would be holiday of choice. So that is where we came up with that. Part-time holiday pay. So this would be a benefit for permanent part-time employees only. You'd be eligible for this benefit if you were scheduled to work on a holiday, but you were a part-time employee. So the big item of discussion that I've left for last tonight is the overhaul of the vacation, sick leave, and PTO. So right now, all of our employees get vacation, sick leave, and PTO. The general consensus amongst the staff was that we would just go to PTO or have one bucket of leave. Makes it a lot easier to track, and from a payroll standpoint, makes it much easier to just issue PTO. So, as you can see, based off of your years of service, you will now accrue PTO depending on how long you've been employed with the city. And you would hit a max, and the personnel committee kind of agreed that the max should only allow you to carry over a week and a half. So that is where we came up with the maximum amount of time. We also are going to allow part-time employees PTO at half the rate of full-time employees. And that also will be dependent on their years of service. So I have talked a lot tonight. Does anybody have any questions, concerns about the employee handbook changes?
First thing I want to say is good job, you guys identifying some of these things that were needed probably for a while. I think we talked about that. But I think that's the important thing through this, and I've talked to Chelsea a handful of times going through this, is that she has been keeping staff informed throughout this and getting their input as well, which I totally value, that the staff was given their input before it came to personnel. And I just truly appreciate that approach of allowing them to have, their say in this throughout this whole process before this made it to this level. So that, I think the personnel meetings were very productive, and that we got to this point. Obviously some long overdue changes, but with that, if anybody else has any comments, go for it.
I also agree, and we discussed this as well, Chelsea, but this has been something that felt like we never knew potentially why things were in there. We just overlooked them as we saw. As we just moved forward, it wasn't something that we really took head on, and I think that we have to be more competitive with many things, including, competitive now with the evaluation period, probationary. We need to have that opportunity to evaluate people correctly. We've never potentially done that. I think that's maybe a separate conversation internally. Management, just improvement programs, that's aside from this, but especially the PTO, we just need to make it easier, and I think of something that attracts outside, individuals as they come from other places that offer this already and have for many, many years, and we're just now getting so appreciative of our dedication to this.
Questions, comments, or take a motion?
I just like to say, I kind of look at this a different way. I think good employees are like good friends. You get good friends, you want to hang on to them. You get good employees, you want to hang on to them. And I just enable us to hang on to our good employees.
Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
Roll call.
Sarchet? DeVore? Vogel? Yes. Walters?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item is second reading of ordinance 2019-1500, Mid-American Energy franchise fee. Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Vogel? Yes. Walters?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
DeVore?
Yes.
Motion carries. Before we get into waive the third, have you guys had any other fee? Have you had any comments from anybody?
No, sir.
You read my mind. That was
Yeah, I
my
just
question.
wanted to know, because that was kind of why we waited, and so as discussed at the last meeting, we'll throw an option to waive the third if anybody wants to make a motion. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vogel? Yes. Walters?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
DeVore?
Motion carries. Item E, second reading of ordinance 2019-1600, Midland Power franchise fee. Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Vogel? Yes. Walters?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sarchet? DeVore?
Motion carries. Next item is option to waive the third reading. I'll ask again. Any questions, comments, or
No,
against?
sir.
Perfect. I'll take a motion. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Vogel? Yes. Walters?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sarchet? DeVore?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item, reports and particulars. Bridget, you want to go first? Yes, you are. You are here to talk about what's going on this next week. So.
Just spare lighting.
Oh my goodness.
To
Talk earlier.
ease Jason's blood pressure, I saw the guys this morning. Saw them putting out
Didn't even
the
ask.
lights, and quickly let him know that Public Works, thank you, we're right on top of it. Nothing to worry about.
It was a nice day.
So yeah, looking forward to it.
And I see the forecast says 37, so Bridget's run of horrible weather hopefully comes to an end.
See, I was gonna look, but I didn't want to jinx it, so now
I
it's
have
okay.
not looked. You're the first one to tell
8:58, I got a text message from her saying, just so you know, Randy and Cody are putting up the lights. So I said, good, I don't have to even bother you today. So I call you every year. I said, we did fun. Anyway. You got anything?
Yeah, I just want to, give a shout out to the library staff. Brittany put on a great event last Saturday with our Frozen Party. We had 212 people in there.
Yeah, I
Coming
drove
to
past
see Anna
and
and
parking
Elsa.
was at a premium. Holy moly.
I think we took over the Methodist church
Yeah.
and daycare and down to the school. So
I forgot what it was going on. I was going down Broadway and I saw these princesses walking down the street instead of saying, what is... Oh, yeah, that's right.
and then also, Pam does a great job with her adult programming, and just over a week ago, she celebrated her 20th anniversary with the library, and I should have brought that up that week and forgot about it. But, so, she's extremely valuable to us up there.
No doubt. Jim?
No, sir.
Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge John Cleaver with the Polk City Little League. He's been doing a lot of volunteering out at the sports complex. If anybody's noticed, you might want to drive out there too. It's a collaborative effort, but without his leadership and getting volunteers, it probably wouldn't have happened this way. But they've done some dugout work out there. We've done some of the heavy work with our equipment, of course, like breaking out the concrete, that type of thing, but they would pour it back. They're putting up chain link dugouts now that'll last a while with metal roofs, that type of thing. I know he's putting steel roofing on one of the not dugouts, but the concession stands out there, the smaller ones, not our big one, of course. But he's really done a lot of work and gathered people to do that work out there this fall. So I just wanted to acknowledge.
Are they doing on their dime, or are we paying for something?
It's our stuff.
But it's their labor.
But their labor, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's big savings
Good
there.
stuff, yeah. Great.
Street sweepers are supposed to be in next week, weather permitting. I know that it's late, but the leaves fell late too, so trying to catch up with that. And square lighting was on my list, but
Thanks, Mike.
we'll move on.
Thanks, Mike. Anything for you guys?
Well, this maybe is mostly for Ron, but I've got calendars.
No, I need a calendar. No, I need
Yeah, on a calendar for 2020 already.
Wow.
Thank you.
I think I love those calendars.
I do too. I don't need them near as much now that I just, except sometimes I get up and say, what day is the coffee shop open today? What day is
A calendar with Mondays on the road. What do you need a calendar?
You guys got anything down here?
I just want to tag on to what Mike said about John Cleaver and about he's a doer, always has been. He wants to get things done. He was putting roofs on this weekend rather than go and play with his old buddy, but that's fine. He got it done, and so I'd like to thank him for not calling and asking me to help, but that's okay, 'cause I would have. But it's a good thing. It's good to have volunteers like that who really want to do it. I mean, he's just a doer, plain and simple.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy when someone comes and says, hey, I will do this if you can do that.
Yeah.
I love working with those types.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you and Randy. I know
Yeah, he
Randy's
was
been a big help, and so thank you guys.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like we may talk about this afterwards, but if you agree, maybe the same accommodation program that Chief did with the firefighters to formally recognize him, something to consider. Just agree if he's doing all that, we can shine a light on it a little. Be cool.
Anything else?
Thanks to Chelsea, and so we had the first neighborhood citizens group meeting last week or the week before. Since she's come on, good conversation. Did a very good job explaining the franchise fees, and some of that gets a little wonky, but I think it's good to get that information out there. They see it was no change to anybody's pocketbooks and a benefit to us, so I think that was just a good example. Got some good feedback on some items that they've seen too.
So once again, something that us and the council typically we're not really involved with, but just really mainstreaming the policies, processes, procedures, everything and I know Chelsea spearheaded it, but really all of city staff and employees have been weighing in collaborative effort, because it's really refreshing to know that collaboration's there, and that we're getting up with the times, and there'll be a lot less gray area, a lot more black and white, which I think was needed for quite some time. So just thanks for everybody, helping go along with the process, and also spearheading that as well. I think it's just to keep it going. I mean, whatever you can see if we can streamline and be the best practice. That's perfect. Thank you.
Basically took plan is that make individual
I was
comments
hoping.
on the economic development policy of the handbook, but, between those, the rate study we're doing on sewer and water, the goal setting session, we're doing a lot of foundational work that, a lot of it won't be, our citizens won't say, oh, that's a great policy that you put in place, but, really it is foundational to retaining good employees, to maximizing the dollars that we're able to spend on services for our citizens. Again, a lot of work between Chelsea leading the efforts there, staff. I've heard over and over again how beneficial your input has been on whether it's the rate study, the goal setting, all of that kind of stuff. So thank you, and I know council members involved in all this as well. So thanks everyone for all this work, and like Dave said, hopefully we can continue picking apart all these things that, we have an opportunity to raise the bar on. And I also wanted to make a special call out to the library. I know we just approved some additional part-time staffing hours. As Jamie said, they have record attendance. I mean, at program after program after program, they cover shifts. I mean, they do not have an abundance of staff there at the library. They do it without, we don't hear about it from a citizen, from a staff member, from anybody. So thanks again to the library staff for all they do. And I'm glad you guys get a little help and support to cover those times when you guys are buried.
So let's pick on Jamie and just tell her she needs to speak up a little bit.
I know. See, again, she won't ask for any attention.
I know she
won't
won't.
ask
I
for
know.
much, but I am so glad
You have to see the budget proposals coming.
Oh, I see. Shoot.
It's still less than Mike's.
Wow. You went ever down the gauntlet between the library and public works.
all of there.
Wow, still less than mine. See if your parking lot gets plowed. Got it. All right. So we had a meeting, very productive meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers this last week, and I just want to go on record again. I know I say it every single time, what a valuable relationship that is, and the people that we know there and the people that we meet there. I can't overemphasize the importance of that positive relationship we have with those folks. They're on speed dial and willing to answer every single. So just good group of people, and really appreciate them taking the time to spend a little bit of time with us.
I have two things. Goal setting report was sent to you late this afternoon. Council, please review. We know there's some grammatical errors. We will get those fixed, but if you have any feedback, please let me know. That'll be on the December 9th agenda. And then City Hall's closed Thursday and Friday for the holiday.
Great.
Yeah.
I just have a few more things to say. I want to thank Chelsea for getting this stuff started, hitting the ground running, so to speak, and making strides. Jason, you for reaching out to the Corps, the school, all those relationships that weren't what they should have been at one time, but we're making great strides that way, and it feels good. Employees, being part of the personnel committee with going over this thing, I got the feeling that you guys just weren't looking out for yourselves. We're looking out for the city, and that's a good feeling and a good thing to know. So, again, I'm proud to be a part of it.
And with that,
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, yes. Was that what that is?
Oh, that's why
No,
Ron's in a good mood to get paid.
Yeah. Now, everybody has to sign a contract. They're not going to tell Mr. Chairman, and I got this. And I use it all for I use a lot of stuff. I use some of the Christmas shopping. Thank you, Chelsea. I was wondering, what should I ask for?
I assume that they're going to like.
I was surprised.
Said I'll get it.
I'm going out on Friday. I did that 2 years ago.
I was late.
I was in line at F5 2 years ago.
My first one.
I know. I'd like to get like no closed session. Saying if you all want to be earlier because I don't have a closed session.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what to do with myself. I don't have a closed session.
Dinner.
I know at a normal time, right? When nobody's
I told the guy behind me,
Hey, can I get 2